Cannabis talks, everybody's feeling high. Sharing secrets of the grow is a sacred art. In this cultivation game, you gotta play your part. Keep it real, keep it tight, watch the plants grow. Garden cultivation network, we on the scene. Rolling that green, living out the dream. Chatting about the strains, how to plant it right. Join us every week, yeah, we light up the night.
Yo, damn it. I
Happy
did it again.
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
How'd
Happy
you think about
Wednesday.
that?
Yeah, I get mixed up. I get that wishful thinking on Wednesdays, and I just want to say happy Friday, but you know, it is what it is. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, and
We are.
we got a hell of an episode tonight.
We do. But before we get too much into it, last week we had Hygrozyme Leanne come on. So if you missed that episode, you could go back and rewatch it or head on over to Garden Cultivation Network over on Spotify.
Yes. And that episode, Leanne broke down pretty much what every product that they sell, every product that they make does. So if you have any questions about what the enzyme formula is or does, or the hygroben or the high clean or any of that stuff, she broke everything down. So it's a good episode if you're looking to get into using hygrozyme, or if you do use hygrozyme and you got questions, it's definitely a good episode to go back and rewatch.
For sure. For sure. And we are also getting closer and closer to the giveaway, which is
Yeah, we
once we
are.
hit our 1,000 subscriber. So that's going to be really exciting.
Like we got like less than 10. So I think we'll probably end up doing it, maybe not this Friday, but next Friday, a week from Friday. Is my
Yes.
guess. That's my guess. That's what we're shooting for, anyways. We may get it on like Thursday or something, or maybe even Friday, but I mean, we gotta have a minute to kind of get set up. So we'll probably do it the Friday after. So yeah, other than
Yes,
that,
and
I
thank you
mean,
to all the sponsors who are making the giveaway possible
yeah,
as well, because we got a
we went
few
over
awesome
we went
ones.
over
We
everything
did.
that was in there. Like there's Three Rivers, Biotech, there's Hygrozyme, there's Optic Foliar, there's
Dry
some
tent.
genetics in there, some dry tent, the cure jars. Um, I know I'm forgetting stuff, but there's more. There's more stuff. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know where my book is. I got it all written down. There's a lot of stuff. It's gonna be good. But yeah, our episode tonight is a topic that doesn't get talked about very often. And I think it's a topic that I've said it before is very, very relatable for a lot of people, not necessarily because they've been down this road, but because maybe they've thought about going down this road and they don't necessarily know the steps to go through to go down this road. Because as we've been talking to Chubbs a little bit, um, it's not the easiest thing to do. So last episode he was on, I want to say like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And right at the end of the episode, we started getting into using cannabis medically for children with different conditions, and it just got really good at the end, and I was like, shit, we got to shut this off now. So we felt that we needed to do a next episode, and
Her too.
here it is. And that's, I think, going to be pretty much the topic for the night is using cannabis medically for not even necessarily just for children, but just medically in general for anybody that needs it. But this is a good, he's going to go through a lot of the steps and tips that he may have, that questions that people might have because they've tried this or they don't know where to find the research and stuff like that. So I'm excited for this one.
Yes, and it is a very controversial subject. So try to
Yeah.
keep the chat clean and our opinions clean as well.
Hey, Rex has got it covered. But I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, people can think what they want, but I mean, honestly,
And a disclaimer as well, what works for one person may not work for another, and I'm sure he will get into that himself, but
exactly.
so just keep that in mind as well.
Yes, it's just weed, man. It's just weed. All right, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Yo, yo.
Yo, how's everybody
Wednesday.
doing? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I think that may have been our longest, most drawn out introduction to a guest coming on ever.
It was making me laugh. It was like you were saying right at the end of the last episode, it started really getting good. And it reminded me of like when you're eating your favorite food and you're down to that last bite and you're like, wow, I wish I had a whole nother plate of this.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And
Exactly.
I wasn't saying that the rest of the episode wasn't good, but we just got into that topic right at the end where it was like, holy shit, we need to keep this going. But
Yeah,
at the end of the hour, right? So
it's definitely one, that I remember when I first started going on that journey. And I want to say it was right around 2016. So it's been a little while, that I've navigated it. And I tell you, my wife and I first decided that we were going to go down that route and use cannabis first and foremost, everything's medically legal in my state where I'm at. So that's a blessing for me. So that was one of the first things I do. And I tell everybody is, if you're going to go down that route, first thing is go get medically licensed. So that way, you have your bases covered, and any explaining that you have to do, you only have to do so much, just because you don't owe many an explanation. If that's the road you choose to go down, the licensing just protects you, just in case people want to use their opinions and point fingers, to where it's like, you're more than welcome to say what you have to say, different strokes for different folks. And it wasn't my first alternative. We went the pharmaceutical route, and it wasn't until we noticed that it just wasn't controlling his seizures. And if I remember right, I'm horrible with medicines and the names, but I want to say, I think it was like Depakote or something like that is what he was taking for my son's epileptic and autistic. So he was taking his medication for his epilepsy to try to keep his seizures under control. And autism is a whole nother, I don't even like saying disability. It's just a whole nother speed bump per se that somebody has to go through in life and just learn, just because there's so many different variations of it. You got high functioning, to where then you have strictly nonverbal, and it's not one to where you can just sit there and say, oh, hey, my kid's autistic, and exactly the severity of it, I should say, because there's all different, there's all different ways. Some, they don't always stem the same, they don't always have the same meltdowns, so, but at the end of the day,
I've met people that are autistic and I didn't even know.
Yeah, and
I had
that's,
no idea.
and that's one of those things to where, you have so many different, I'm sure if I got tested as a kid, they'd probably say the same thing about me, but
Right.
that and much more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't one of our first avenues. We had went the pharmaceutical route. I'm not against anything. I mean, when I got a cold, I go take cold medicine. I'm not sitting there doing anything too crazy. I just, but back to where everybody is different, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all blessed with the same cannabinoid and endocannabinoid system, so I've been a strong advocate of cannabis my whole life, well, since early teen years, so I wasn't necessarily against it. I just never thought I'd go down that route. But it wasn't until, my wife has a nursing background, and she started noticing there's a certain count, because when you take these certain medications, you got to get your liver and your kidneys checked, for certain counts to make sure that it's not basically attacking your insides. And when you sit there and take so much to try to control one thing, it's almost bad for another thing, because your body doesn't like to digest it. So when she explained,
what scares me is when there's like you see these commercials on TV and they're like, take this for this, and then they go, and then these are the side effects. So then it's just like it's scrolling on the screen because there's so many of them, and you're like, oh my god, it can enlarge my heart, and it's like, what?
Oh,
You know,
100%,
like
you know,
shit
and
you
it's
wouldn't even think
Yes.
of. You're like, what?
it's always the butterfly effect to a point. You know, you sit there and you look at the face of it, but you know, the ripples that go beyond what we're actually seeing is scary because that's what's not explained to you. You know, they're telling you, hey, this medicine's going to save your kid's life and this and that, but what they're not telling you, my son was, I want to say 4 when he was diagnosed epileptic and autistic, I think somewhere right around there. And right around 5 is when we noticed, 5 or 6 is when we noticed it just wasn't working the same. And back to everybody being humans. And if anybody's a parent in the community or watching this, we all know our kids and we all know our siblings, especially the ones in our inner circle. So when you start noticing those abnormalities of, wait a minute, this just isn't normal, you know, something isn't just right, you know, and go to the doctor. All right, let's do EEGs. Lo and behold, you know what? The meds are basically, you're at a peak level to where they're not keeping his seizures at bay. It's not keeping him under that threshold where we need him to be. So, and that's scary because the more you up the meds, the more you're going to look like you have cirrhosis of your liver, you know, and kidneys are going to go bad by the time you're 25. And it's like, come on, my son's never even had a drip of alcohol at this point, but you're going to sit here and
Yeah.
tell me he's going to have cirrhosis of the liver by the time he's 25 because, hey, heaven forbid he ain't having a seizure, but now he doesn't have a kidney or liver either. It's like, well, you know, so for me, I'm very dumb when it comes to that medical stuff of it. Thank
Right.
God my wife is not. So, you know, it's that balance. So she explains it to me when we get out of the doctor's offices, you know, so I understand more clearly.
She
But
shoves it down a little bit.
oh, 100%, bro. 100%. Because I actually scared the doctor when he told me, you know, my son was diagnosed epileptic. You know, I stood up like, what did you just tell me? You know, and the guy kind of got a little nervous. And I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but you could tell I wasn't having any shit. You know, I was just like,
Yeah.
you said what? Like, no, you know, I did apologize, you know, and I told him I'm sorry for making him feel uncomfortable. I'm hoping it's a normal reaction.
I would honestly, I would think so. I would think he probably even has worse reactions.
Yeah,
You know, that's
so
when you hear
we went
about
the route
anything,
we went that
when the
route, you know,
school
that they
calls and
told
says
us.
when the school calls and said your kid scraped their knee, you get worried. You know what I mean? So when you
100%,
get news like
100%.
that, you kind of, I don't even
You,
want to
you
say
know, that's
overreact.
that
You react.
yeah, 100%. And you know, it's that fight or flight just comes in, and any parent knows, you know, that mama bear or papa bear is just going to go into full effect. You know,
Yep. Yeah.
you can do a
So
lot of
true.
shit to me, but you know, it's just like anybody. You leave my kids out of it. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it was one of those where I wasn't necessarily against it. So when we realized that his meds were no longer controlling his seizures, that's when we knew, all right, what direction do we want to go? You know, because it wasn't our first avenue. I tried to do what the doctors told me to do, and you know, and I didn't
Yeah.
know any better. I'm just listening to what people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get degrees and licensing for that are way smarter than me that are telling me this stuff. But yet at the end of the day, it's not working the way I know it should. You know, it's not a cure all. Hey, you take this and you're not going to have a seizure type thing. So
Yeah,
that's
you're all
the
better.
yeah, exactly. We wish it was that wonder tonic out there, but that's
Oh,
just
but
not
yeah, of
how it is,
course.
you know? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it was research, you know, I think for 6 months, I dove into everything I could about growing and I never thought I'd go down that journey. But when my wife and I decided, all right, let's go down this journey for the first, I want to say year, I went and bought cannabis from the dispensaries, you know, and how I figured it out is, you know, I would look up certain strains have different terpenes that are more medicinal, you know, and we went the CBD route because that's generally what you hear everywhere. You know, first thing you hear about
Yeah.
autism and, you know, epilepsy, let's try CBD. It may help. It did not, you know, it may have helped some of the seizures, but at the end of the day, it was bringing out behavioral issues more than anything. And
So
that's
again, it was like the other stuff. It was
exactly, it's that, you know,
maybe
both
helping
sides.
with one thing, but it was causing something else. It's not causing, liver damage or kidney damage or something like that. But I mean, it's still like when it changes your whole attitude, like that's not fun for the kid and that's not fun
100%, you
for
know,
the
and
parents either. Like
And
that's
I've seen that personally in my son go from like taking one med to the next and how much the one med like made him extremely violent. How the
yeah,
other med, he's only 11. We had to get him tested for his blood pressure all the time to make sure that these pills were great. And he's like 11 years old. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
And as any parent, you know, you just want what's best for your child, you know, or even if we're not even talking about a child and maybe just a significant other or a loved one, you know, grandma, uncle, whatever, you know, just even a friend, you know, that you're trying to help out. The the thing I found was there was a lack of information online, you know, when it came to how do you know which strains work, which strains don't. And I wish there was a strain that I could tell you, hey, this is going to be your answer to everything of your problems, you know, but that's just not it. Back to
yeah,
where the terpene profiles went, when we started buying it from dispensaries, you know, I'd get online and figure out what strains that we thought might work, you know, and we went that route after the CBD, and we really noticed a difference when it was full THC. And it was like the granddaddy perps, you know, the purple punches, the dosey dos. We even tried the
yeah,
face off, you know, just because certain strains are known for more medical benefits than others.
yeah,
And again, I'm no expert when it comes to it. I'm just a parent trying to do what's best and, you know, let my kid live a healthy
Yeah.
life. Thank
exactly.
God again, you know, we're in a
Comfortably,
legal
yeah,
state where, you know, those
yeah,
options are out there. And that's the nice
yeah,
part, because there's places in the world where it's sad that that option isn't even an option and you got no choice but to continue to take this med, you know, that
yeah,
again, the doctor's doing what he truly believes is the best possible answer at what he has at his disposal. So I'm not blaming the doctor by any means either, you know, but
yeah.
when we really
Yeah,
noticed a
like, I
difference,
think it was Crimson in the chat. He said, like, they're basically just they're the middleman. They're just passing on the information that they're told to give you at the end of the day.
100%,
That you know that
100%, you
has
know,
already
they can
been
read the
written in a
test.
book somewhere for them, and they just pass on. You know, they look up the certain condition and they go, okay, yep. So then the book says this. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to take. Oh, he weighs
Exactly.
this much. Okay, he's supposed to take this much. You know, that's it's all based off of numbers and information that's already been laid out for all of
100%,
us.
you know, and at the end of the day, it's all an educated guess. That's all we're doing, you know.
Yep.
Even when I did HVAC and appliance repair for years, even diagnosing something, you know, you go into it and A plus B, and obviously it isn't equal C. So let's find out what's in between and figure out the best possible answer so I can tell you what's going to fix your problem, you know. And
Yep.
that was the issue. You know, there wasn't any information, but there's a lot of information on if you look up and know how to look it up. You know, I want to say, you know, I don't like throwing out websites or anything like that, but I will say that what is it? It's on Facebook, and it's whole plant for autism, I believe it is
Okay.
what the group is called. And it's just,
Okay.
I mean, thousands of moms in there that are going through the same thing that we're going through. Because my wife was, I told her when we decided to go down this route is I'll become the best possible grower I can. But just from what research and knowledge that I know, it's a lot of information for one person to try to take on. It's not impossible. And again, anybody and everybody knows we'll do anything it takes, you know, to make it worthwhile, especially when it comes to your kids. But
Right. Yeah.
having that partner, I told her, you know, you do the medical aspect of it because you have that nursing background of it. You understand the dosage part of it because that's a whole different topic. You know, how do you understand the right
Yeah.
dosaging? And, you know, and I mean, even converting
Yeah,
just
because at
raw
the end of it
flour to oil, you know, it was so much to it. I'm like, there's no way I can try to do both. I can be the best grower and I can try to do everything I can to be the best at what I do for us, you know, but
yeah.
I need you to do this. And thank God, you know, it's a team effort. I don't say one does more than the other. You know, it's 50-50, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think each job is just as important, you know what I mean? Like, coming up with the numbers, like, how much do I give? When do I
Yeah.
give it? What how are we giving it? You know, all those things, and
Yeah.
then making whatever it is,
Yeah. And
whether
what we
it's an
did is we learned, you know,
oil
it was
or
just like the oils, you know, and that's how my son takes it is it's an oil form, you know, and we
yeah.
actually will make
Like,
pill form now, you
is
know,
it like
after
a MCT oil?
Yeah, basically
Is that
it's
what you- Yeah.
she'll break down the flour with a coconut oil as a carrier. When she first started, we tried doing the olive oil as everybody, the little articles you could find recommended. But as
Yeah.
anybody and everybody knows, if you've ever tried some olive oil, it doesn't taste the best. I don't
No,
care what they say and how good it tastes, So especially if you're trying to get a nonverbal child to take something and continue to take it without a struggle, it's one of those things where I'm going to try to make it as semi-delicious as I can. I mean, it's
Right.
Yes.
don't get me wrong, I like smoking a blunt, but I've never chewed on a nug, because I enjoyed the flavor that much. So it's one
Right.
of those.
Yeah, I'm not gonna eat
So
one,
now,
but I'll definitely smoke it.
exactly, now we use coconut oil, and she does the math on breaking it down. A lot of it she'll break down an ounce at a time, and there's a machine that I bought her, I want to say just last year, before she used to use the crock pot, and now it's called the Altafuse, and it'll break
Okay.
down and basically tell you exactly what you need to, if how strong you want to make it per, the ratio of oil to can, the whole thing. Now they've, like you said, it's crazy how much it's changed in time, just because there's more people catching on, knowing it's not just the devil's lettuce and it's going to ruin people's lives and make you lazy. No, it's a life-saving
Yeah.
plant, in my opinion. And
Well, this
again, I've
needs to
always,
happen more. Like these
100%.
conversations like this need to happen more often and in more places because like this is a topic that doesn't get talked about very often. It doesn't get talked about enough. It really just medically in general, not just for children, but in general for whoever needs it. This is a topic that should be talked about more, just so that the
100%,
information
and
is
it's,
more available.
for me, it's always mind-blowing and just very humbling and appreciative, to just see how many different ways this plant affects people's lives, because everybody has that crutch. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I've smoked since my teen years, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. I can't tell you, after a hard day's work, or you just had a bad situation, that I go home and fire one up and sit on the couch, and it's not one of those where, oh, it brings me to a different place. No, it just gets
No,
me to where I can sit there and compress everything that happened in the day. I can enjoy myself, go on with it, and I didn't do anybody any harm. But yet at the same time, you go to the whole different side of the coin, and it's saving people's lives, preventing people from having seizures, and
yeah.
it's just mind blowing how much of a stigma that it's brought on it since it's been illegal. Well, again, I'm no history buff, but I want to say since like the late '60s, early '70s is when it was federally illegal again. And
Yeah.
it went to that point where, imagine how much things have progressed in that amount of time. Because we're always thinking, wow, man, just how much time flies. And look at now, we're doing live podcast and we're in 3 different areas. I mean, it's just crazy where, hell, I remember there was a payphone on every corner. Now you can't find one,
You can't even
and
find one anymore.
yeah. So
And when you
imagine
do,
those
they
30
don't cost a
years,
quarter anymore.
Yeah.
if it wasn't,
Going going back
I
to the
just,
stigma and stuff, how has your family and people in the community reacted to your choice?
I'll be honest, I've gotten more when we first started, not necessarily bad looks, because I could care or give 2 shits, however one wants to put it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I knew in my heart I was doing what was right. And as a
Yeah.
parent, that's all you can do. There's not a book out there that'll tell you, hey, this is what you do, and this is what's going to happen. No, it's all a feeling, and as any parent or anybody that knows that loves somebody significantly, you just want what's best. And when it first started, I come from a very, very strict family, like fire department, police department. So it was, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're gonna do what, or you're thinking about doing what. And I don't blame them, like I've said before, my father-in-law is a retired sheriff, and I totally
Yeah.
get it, how hard it must be to see people you prosecuted, or not even people, just the whole situation. You did a career and may have prosecuted and changed the directions of people's lives over something that
Over
may be legal in a
this
state you
point.
live in now, so I
Yeah.
get it. I'm not knocking anybody for what they do.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, like being an ex police officer and Your father-in-law, he comes from a different generation for one, and he's a cop.
100%,
So he gets
100%,
it from two completely different sides, right? So he grew up under this like drugs are bad, weed is bad, your
yeah,
brain is a frying egg when when you smoke weed, and if
100%,
the
you're
whole
going to be
reefer madness
lazy.
bullshit, and then as a cop, this is illegal, this is bad, blah 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 blah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
What about?
it's,
I know we. Go ahead.
no, it was really, you'd get it at the school, because schools are still
That's my
federally
next
illegal.
question.
Schools are federally illegal to administer meds, and you can't take any type of drug. And unfortunately, cannabis is still federally illegal. And with schools being federally funded, I respect the rules 100%. I try to do everything by the book. So what I would do is there's nothing illegal without me signing my son out for, 5 minutes driving around the block, administering meds while he's at lunch, and then signing him right back in. And I did that for 5 years, I want to say, every day. I'd figure out a way to get to his school, sign him out. I'd keep the meds in my car and I would give it to him. And it really made a difference. I want to say 2 years into when we started really, noticing the difference. We did an EEG down there in Rady's Children's Hospital in San Diego. And again, it's test, to where they hook up everything and they sit there and they watch your brain and see if you have a seizure.
yeah,
It blew my mind, the look and just the almost gratitude this nurse, she's a mom herself, and she told me, whatever you're doing as a nurse, I can't say good job, because again, hospitals are federally funded, so I can't tell you good job, I can't tell you what you're doing is amazing, but I can tell you as a parent, thank you for what you're doing, because it's by far saving your son's life. And he's not having a seizure. She tried to induce a seizure right there in her office and she couldn't do it, and
yeah,
it really struck home right there, where it's like, I'm growing this from start to finish. And again, when I started growing it, I started growing fast buds, when I started doing the medical journey, and I've stayed that route the whole time. I've used every strain, that they've released, and they've all worked the same. And like I said, when we first started, we went after the terpene profiles just because they're more certain medicinal properties. And again, that's
right,
way beyond my able to explain, but if you look up the terpene charts, they'll tell you certain terpenes just have different, some will get you happy, where some are more medicinal, some will get you more sleepy, and again, way beyond mine, but
yeah,
when I started, it's kind of like a food. I've always had that intuition. Again, I'm no doctor. I'm just a parent trying to do what's best, but it's like food. Say you were blind and you couldn't see that food. So with my son being nonverbal, how do I ask him, how do you like this smell? So with food, if you naturally smell a food and you can't see it, the chances of you, if you like it and it not tasting good to you, are really unlikely. Generally, if you smell
yeah,
something, even if you're walking by a building and you don't even know what's cooking, but that just smell catches
yeah,
your
oh,
eye,
yeah,
chances are you're going to really enjoy it, what it is, just because, naturally, boom, first instinct, it smells. So that's what I go off of now. Every strain I grow before I make a med, I'll have my son now, fast forward, he's almost 15. He's can talk. And it's like you said, you'd never even know he's autistic or epileptic because it's been years since he's had seizures. And
that's
thank
amazing.
God the course we've went down actually worked. But again, it's not just, I tell everybody too, cannabis isn't that wonder tonic where it's going to fix all your issues. My son went
Right,
to,
and it's a
I
lot
mean,
of
years of,
trial and error too,
well,
because
not
like
only
you said,
that,
there's
just years of speech therapy, OTs, it takes a lot of work. It's
yeah,
it's a culmination of the whole thing. The car don't run just because you got wheels on it. The engine's got to fire up and everything's got to align for that thing to go down the
Exactly.
road, and
yeah,
My
if
son
you,
was 13 when he first started speaking, so I get that.
yeah, and again, it's not just because I speak to my son, and even when he was nonverbal, and the doctors told me, I want to say he was about 4.5, 5, and they told me he'd never speak just because he doesn't understand comprehension. It just doesn't resonate. His brain just doesn't. And I sat there, and again, I don't understand half of what the doctors tell me until afterwards I get out and my wife explains it to me and
yeah,
again chubs it down a little bit. And then I'm like, okay. But as soon as he said it, I'm just thinking, what crock of bullshit are you trying to feed me? Everybody is different. How are you going to sit here and tell me that you know everything about my son and this is how it's going to play out? Whereas you don't know, for one, I'm a stubborn SOB. And if I got my mind set on something, I'm going to do everything humanly
It's gonna
power
happen.
in my capability to do it and make it happen. So I just sat there and kind of was like, okay. And I've always explained to my son, you know, your disability doesn't define who you are. It just makes one thing different for you to where you have to learn to live life just a different way. It doesn't change anything. You know, everybody has
100%.
something about themselves that doesn't make them, no one's 100%. So to sit
Right.
there and try to make somebody's diagnosis define them is just, it's scary how much people like to put labels on things. And that's where the stigmas come
100%.
from, you know, is those labels, in my opinion.
Yep. Well, that's like you
So
said
you
earlier
said,
too. Like if we were tested for this stuff when we were kids, go rewind 40
I
years, you know
laugh.
what I mean? We would have a list of shit this long nowadays.
Oh,
If they
yeah.
ran the same tests on us back then as they do now on kids,
Oh,
like
yeah.
when my son, when my ex was pregnant with my son, they did there's a screening test that they do, and they told us 110% your son is going to have Down syndrome. The tests told me that.
Yeah.
And we're at almost 4 months. And they were like, so you need to start thinking about your options. And I was, pardon me? Like, what options? They
Yeah.
said, well, termination. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I've seen that kid.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. And he was born, no Down syndrome whatsoever. None.
100%.
Well,
100%.
how many people are they telling the same thing to? And then they go and do it.
It's scary, you know,
Because
and that's the thing that kind of really mind boggles me is how is it still federally illegal, not only in the United States, but just how is it still illegal worldwide, you know, just because somebody said something's bad, you know? Well, I'll be honest, you know, I drink once in a blue moon. I can't honestly tell you the last time I had a beer, you know? I'm not telling you
yeah,
it's the best thing in the world, but I'm not telling you it's the worst. But if that's, you know, what you choose to do, I can still go to the liquor store and buy, you know, any bottle of number of bottles, you know what I mean, right there. They have a selection. So it's scary that it shouldn't be the same way for something that is
not
so
only
much
that,
more.
there's also no limit.
No,
Like
no.
here, I don't know what it's like down there, but here we're only allowed to legally have up to 30 grams on your person, in your pocket, wherever. When you leave the front door of your house and you're out in public, you're only allowed to have 30 grams. But I can walk around with a backpack on with 12 60-pounders of hard alcohol.
100%, you know, and
There's no
again,
limit,
I'm not saying one's any worse than the other. I'm just saying, you know what? You
Yeah.
shouldn't sit there and just flip that side of the coin because of the stigma you were told. You know, there's a lot of things throughout
Exactly.
history that we were raised that may not be the right way it is anymore, you know, and just because you're raised
Yeah.
that way doesn't mean it's the right way, you know. And I'm not saying, you know, you go against traditions or go again, back to where my father-in-law, you know, I'm sure it's a hard pill to swallow to see that, you know, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, enough people had
But
said
facts are
and made
facts, though.
change to
When
where
the proof
it's
is in front of you, it's hard to argue with it.
100%,
Like
you
Chad
know,
was saying, when
100%.
once you see the medical benefits in your face, it's hard
Yeah.
to disagree with it. It's impossible.
Well, and it's crazy because, you know, like again, I'm sure everybody, you know, school's just starting, you know, and my son we're talking about, you know, he's starting high school this year, first year of high school. It's his second day, you know,
Oh,
and
snap.
what's crazy to me is I remember taking him to kindergarten, have to go pick him up because he was having meltdowns and couldn't control his emotions. And it's hard when your kids are like that because again, obviously, you know, when you're not able to
still
control your
dealing with that.
emotions and keep
He's in
them in
grade
check,
7.
then making friends is difficult. And as a kid,
Yeah.
you don't even understand that. And it's hard as a parent to watch that just because it's even worse, you know, to where it's like, you know, it's just not a good scene. So now fast forward, you know, my son had been in special ed classes throughout most, I want to say, of his school. And now he's in atypical classes, you know, again, you'd never even know just because of the work that's been put in. And again, I don't blame it on this amazing flower. I don't blame it on the doctors that told me he never talked. I just, you know what? I blame people for not doing their own research and settling. Never settle for something somebody says just because you think that's right. I mean,
100%.
how many kids you sit there and say, don't do this, and they turn around and don't ask you, well, can I have 15 more minutes to stay up? Like, come on, it's just naturally instinct, do a little more
Yep.
digging. I mean, that's just the way it is. Thank
Yeah,
God
exactly.
I am that way, and it's been truly a godsend and a blessing for me because it has worked out the way it has. And that's why for any parent out there, do your research, and
Mm.
there's much more accessible documentation out there to where you can actually read on it. The machines are out there. Like the machine I bought my wife is, I think it was less than $500. I think it was like $300 if I remember. It might even been cheaper, but I want to say around $300. And again, it makes it pretty much chub proof to where, you put in your stuff, it'll tell you the weights you
Yeah.
have in there, everything, and
And
for me,
anybody
it's
can do it.
absolutely mind blowing. And then
Yeah.
it all comes down to, people get scared about dosage. We'll talk about that. How do you find the right dose? How do you know
Yep, that
what
was one of
dose,
my questions.
what dosages are going to work? How do you know that it's going to actually do what it's going to do? Again, that's where the medical licensing comes into play, because you're going to have doctors do their job on that part, and I knew my medicine was working the way it wanted it to work when, again, his EEG came back and she tried to induce a seizure and she couldn't, and that's
Couldn't
when
do
I
it.
knew, okay, we have the dosing right, as long as, and again, it's just like with anything. I will say, just like a cough syrup, say you have a cold and you're taking Tylenol, and you continue to take that and you continue to take that, your body naturally just gets used to it and it's not going to fight off or do anything. So then you got to switch it up. So that's where I'll grow. Hence, if anybody's ever seen me on IG or any of my social platforms, I generally grow more than one strain. That's one of the
Yep.
reasons why, just because I want that variation of different medicines that I can have accessible if I need to, because
because you don't necessarily want to up the dosage.
no,
You know what I
no.
mean? Like, where if it's not affecting them the same way anymore, your natural thought would be, well, I'll just up it, give them
And
more. But you're not trying to get them high. You're trying to.
I took the words out of my mouth. You get that question all the time, or I do at
Yeah.
least. Are you getting your kid high? No, my son doesn't get
Yeah.
high. Like,
Yeah, you don't
in
get
my
high when you take
opinion,
a Tylenol for a headache either. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
When you first start off, just like with anybody, I don't know anybody that smoked for years and can sit there and tell me, yeah, I still get the munchies every time I smoke. Like, no, come on, bro. Like, that's all in
Yeah.
your head type shit, So
Yeah.
the old getting them high, no. He may get a little sleepy, at times, just because, but again, when you're growing, your body's doing so many different things. I'm not going to just blame it on one thing. You could have had a rough day. You could have mentally been exhausted that day. And I don't hash it out to where, again, if I stopped my journey when I realized the CBDs weren't working and it was bringing out behavioral issues, I'd have been right back to the same road. And that's where it's question what's questioning. What is the reason? Let's find it out. I'm a numbers guy. Numbers don't lie. So if you can sit there and put these variables into play, it generally will make sense, and that's where it comes down to, okay, well, that route didn't come into play. Back, like a lot of people are raised, failure is bad. In my opinion, failure is good because that means you're trying.
Failure is a good thing.
Because you're trying, and failure is just one way that it didn't work out. There's
Right.
there's
That's a great way
thousands
to
of
look at it.
ways, that you can do something. And one of my favorite lines is like Thomas Edison, I believe, is took him over 1,000 times to, invent the light bulb. Imagine if he didn't try and keep being consistent on it for something he believed he could
stopped at
do.
999. We wouldn't
be sitting here with lights and shit, So it's just, and again, I wouldn't quote me on my numbers or the person, but I think it was.
Yeah, but yeah,
it just gets back down to,
your point
how
across.
strong in your heart, even like when anybody, just say we're not even talking medical, when you wanted to start growing your own cannabis for your own consumption because you in your heart knew you could do it. Just like anything in life. I'm sure everybody was scared when they first took their first driving lesson, like my other son's 17 right now telling me how to drive. I think I'm more scared than he will be. It's like, shit, I've already done it with my daughter. She's 22 now. And whoo, I definitely got gray hairs because of it back then,
Yep.
So, but again, it gets back to we just want what's best. So it's always just like, there's no right or wrong answer. I wish there was, where I could sit here and tell you, do this, X plus Y is going to equal Z and it's going to solve all your problems. That's not it, you know? But I'm not saying, you know what, don't try, because in my case, it was it was truly blessing the way it worked out, you know, and
Yeah.
it takes.
But I think honestly that could happen for most people, but most people, I shouldn't say most people, some people aren't as persistent as you were.
100%,
Where
you know, and I've
when
learned,
it did fail the first 1,000 times,
yeah,
you kept going, or
yeah,
the first 100 times or whatever it was, because I'm sure you didn't just nail it like that the first try. Like you
no,
you went through a process and
oh, yeah,
figured this out between you and your
But again,
wife.
that could be said between pharmaceutical medicine as well. So
Yep, of
exactly,
course,
exactly,
of
you know,
course.
and it's a matter of what in your heart do you really feel is the best route to take. And again, I'm no doctor. I'm just, I'm just a human, just like everybody else, parent, and being a consumer of cannabis for so many years, I knew that it wasn't going to do any detrimental harm to him as far as, oh, you know what, you do this, it's going to get you lazy, because I'm about as ambitious as they come. I'm one to tell anybody, make those dreams a reality. Reach for the moon. If you fall short, you're still a star. I mean, it's always go for it, because again, back to failure shouldn't be a fear. Fear is what anything you put into it. It's a man-made emotion. So don't be fearful of trying something that could save or change the whole direction of somebody's life
Of
for the
somebody's
better.
life, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So now that your son is older, do you bring him into the conversations? Like, does he know what he's
100%.
taking? How does that
100%.
conversation come about?
I've never hid cannabis in my household. I've always been one to where I'll openly smoke a blunt in my living room. Don't get me wrong. I'll tell the kids, if they're going to try to hang out, go to your room. I'm not going to
Oh,
sit there.
yeah,
You're not joining the circle. You're a little young for
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
kiddo. Wait a
exactly.
few years. But no,
100%.
no, no, no. I'm a firm believer of being an open book, because the minute you start trying to hide it is the minute you think you're doing something wrong. And I
well,
don't.
that's when they start sneaking around and
Oh, 100%, and no, no, no. Back
normalize.
now that he's older and he's more verbal, he's verbal, very verbal. He'll tell me, and that's back to how I know which strains will work. Again, I grow exclusively fast buds, so I'll grow five of them, and I'll sit there and put all five. He doesn't know the names of them. He don't need to know the names or anything like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
But
No.
if he smells it and it smells good, my wife will turn it into a med, and she understands based on the THC levels. I've had enough of my strains tested to where I know pretty much the baseline that we use,
Yeah.
because that's another thing, is how do you determine your dosages? You got to get your THC to the, and again, I'm going to be putting out a YouTube series in January. I don't even have a YouTube channel yet, but I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I might as well start it with that. So I'm going to cover every base, and she's going to help me out and be in it and part of it, to where it'll be
That's
a great
awesome.
avenue to somebody that wants to go down that avenue, can look and just say, hey, you know what? And I'm going to do it the way we started it, no, I'm not going to go buy some flour just from a dispensary, but I'll use a crock pot. Like when
yeah,
we first started, we used to use a crock pot and a mason jar, and decarbing
yep.
it in the oven and stuff like that. And so I'm going to cover every base, just because, again, how I've evolved isn't how someone's going to start. It's always about those trials and tribulations. So I'm going to try to cover every base, and that's what it's about. But if you can know certain numbers, even, again, if you have to go that route and buy from a dispensary because you're just starting growing, or you don't want to start the whole investment, because we all know it's not cheap. We could
Right.
all have
Yeah,
cheaper hobbies, that's for sure. But
we definitely could. We definitely
but
could. But you know
at the
what?
end of the day, that hobby turns into a passion real quick, and it's one of those, you look
Sure
back and
does.
you're like, I couldn't have been more fortunate and blessed to do what I do, and
It turns into a passion. It turns into therapy. It's so many things all bundled up into one bundle of joy. Like I
Mhm.
don't know what else to call it, because
and
growing
that's
so
the
is
thing for
sometimes
me,
better for me
and
than smoking. You know what I mean? Like I love smoking it, but growing it is just it does something different.
yeah, that's and that's for me, everyone asks, and that's why I started growing, and that's the whole reason I grow. If I didn't have to make meds, we all know it's not easy. And especially as OCD as I am, I'm attentive. I'm in my tent all the time. You see the videos and the memes of the guys opening the video and going in and out, and I work from home, so I'm in there all day. I mean, I got a camera in my grow so I can see while I'm in my living room and I don't want to walk to the grow area, It's like,
Yeah.
come
Well,
on.
it's not just me. I'm not like when I'm at work, I'm like, hey guys, check this out. And I'm showing people pictures. Like, I
Yeah.
took these pictures last night. Look at these, I'm excited about it.
Just took
Over
down
the
my
years,
camera today because I'm like, I
never
don't like
gone
the
away.
angle it's giving me. I think you guys could look better from where I'm looking at you,
Right. But like that feeling has never gone away. It's been like
No.
that since the day I started growing, and that's what I love about this community. Like I think that's why all of us are here in this
Oh,
community is because we all have that same feeling, and to have all these people to relate to and talk to, and I couldn't talk to my buddies anymore. I couldn't talk to my family anymore. They didn't care. They didn't want to hear about it anymore, you know?
oh,
It was just
100%.
another hobby that I was doing that everybody was like, "Oh, great, he's doing something different. That'll
And
be
it's
different
funny
in 6
because
months from now."
if we go back to Bunny's question of those same people, like my family that had their opinions when we first started to see my son where he's at now,
That was my
they're
next
full
question.
night and day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny because my parents and my grandparents passed away, but my wife's grandparents, again, they were a different generation, but they're still alive. And
Yep.
it's funny when we first started, they used to give me kind of the stink eye, like when your grandma used to look at you like, what are you doing there, dude? And
Yeah,
now that the way they've seen me evolved and the way, my son's grown up and their grandson to see them because, they've seen the whole journey. They're
yeah,
my biggest fans. So it's kind of cool to see it go that route. And that's where I tell
yeah,
people and anybody, never hesitate. If you ever want to reach out, I'm no expert by any means, but I am an open book and I can sit here and tell you anything that I know that I've gone through. And I'm not going
yeah.
to sit here and hold back because it might hurt someone's feelings. I'm going to tell you the raw
Well,
and real, whether you like it or not, whether you choose to use it is that's again, human beings that we have all our own free choice to where that's your choice, whether you want to use the info that has worked
yeah.
for me. And I'll tell you exactly how I've done it from point A to point B. And this is where we're at now, and
And like going back to you were saying, you'll answer everything that you can. But the one thing that you have that a lot of people that are just starting this journey that they don't have is where they can go, a direction to go to. You might not know
oh,
the exact answer of the question they're asking, but you might be able to say, "Hey, listen, over on this university website, here's a link that you should
yeah.
check out
Oh,
because it's going to explain
100%, man.
exactly
I can't.
that." Or
I
look up
advise
this
parents all the
article from
time
this
that reach out.
author, or there's probably all kinds of that. You guys probably have all types of stuff bookmarked and researched and stuff like that. And that's where you would come in handy with for somebody that's just starting this journey. Like they could ask you questions and yeah, you could absolutely answer most of them probably, but giving somebody
Yeah,
the
no.
direction that they can go to, where when you guys first started this journey you had no idea what direction to go. You didn't have that person to say, hey, do you know any good articles or websites or books or anything like that? You didn't
Oh,
have that back
100%.
then. You had to figure that shit out on your own.
Oh, 100%. A
So
lot of it we figured out, and again, you moms talk. My wife is an amazing, on those social groups to where she found certain groups to where, again, any parent, but especially moms, they just, it's that motherly instinct, the nature
don't fuck
nurture
with a
just,
mom.
it gets overboard, with moms, and
Yeah.
her friend, is a chemist. And that was, she just reminded me today. It's funny. I totally forgot about it. But when we first started, she kind of was like, hey, you know what? I made some oil, and this is a chemist we're talking, somebody that went to straight college to do elemental table stuff. I couldn't even tell you how many elements are on that table now. I was happy to
Right.
pass that class.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't discouraging, and I've never gotten discouraged. You always see, like, even when I first started growing, you'd see these people, and I'm sure people say the same thing about my grow now, is you see them and you're like, man, what the hell? I hope I can get there one day. And that's key right there, is one day. It's one day at a time. always push yourself, always, again, never just because you got an answer. It might be an answer and it might solve that question, but there is another answer to it. Is, you
Yep.
got to look. So, and that's the whole thing where we were saying too, everybody's different. It's just like with food, when your kids get to a certain age, do you know exactly how much to put on their plate at dinner time? Or do you just take that, intuitional guess and say, you know what, I know this is going to make him fine. He's going to be full. And again, if he needs more, then okay, we got seconds, Same thing when it comes down to the dosaging. I hear it more often than not is I'm scared to overdose or give my kid more than he should have. And it's, what, if you look up on, my son right now, he takes one ml twice a day. So it's, you know what I mean? And again, based off of my THC levels, it's very little, it's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
But again, it's enough to where it keeps his seizures at bay. And, and again, at most, on some days he has a better attitude than not. He's still a teenager. So, I mean, we all know how that goes.
Of course. Teenagers are going to have a bad attitude no matter what. At some point of every day, every week, it happens.
They got a bad attitude about having a bad attitude.
Right. I don't have a bad attitude. You have a bad attitude.
No, what are you talking about, Dad? You're the one with a bad attitude.
Right.
So we touched on you had mentioned autism and seizures. Have you had any experience with ADHD?
100%. My son that I was explaining that's trying to learn how to drive, when he was younger, I want to say right around 6, he was diagnosed with severe ADHD. I mean, I'm talking kid could not sit still. We had to have an IEP in place with special arrangements in class because he needed a bouncy ball chair thing he needed to sit on. And again, this is
having to pick him up every day from school.
Oh, 100%,
My son's going in grade 7, and I've been doing that in kindergarten.
It was one of those things. Again, my son that has ADHD. He hasn't taken cannabis in years because he took it for quite a few years. And it just gave him that avenue to learn how to really just slow down and compartmentalize his thoughts. Because anybody that's had experience with ADHD, people ask me, well, how is it like having a kid with ADHD? And I'm like, you ever tried to get off a freeway during a traffic jam? That's a 5-lane freeway and everybody's trying to get off that exit. Well, imagine that your thought process every day, every thought that comes through your mind, everything. So it could get very overwhelming, but at the same time, you can't sit still either. My son was, we'd go to the amusement park. All the kids are sleeping in the back of the car on the way home. His ass is bouncing off the walls trying to read a book. And it's like, dude, so again, it was the same thing. We did the same medications for both of my sons. It was the same dosages, but after, I want to say he's 17 now. I want to say he was around 13 or 14 is when we decided, all right, hey, you know what? Let's just kind of take him off and see how it is. He actually brought it up again. That's why, I mean, you got to listen and you got to watch, so we said, okay, that's fine. Again, your body changes. Everybody evolves naturally, so again, we all have that endocannabinoid system. So how our body takes it is totally beyond my knowledge, but I know it's there for a reason, and that's what it mainly did is it made him open that freeway back up. You just cleared the accident, to where now he's able to sit there and it's funny. He's a junior and he just started high school. It's funny. Him and his brother, we live in a really small town, so they share the same first period. Made me laugh, but he's actually taking college courses, now and stuff. He's always been very, very smart. It was just a matter of how do you slow it down and harness that ability. Everyone has that niche that we have.
Most of the time, honestly, like I've had ADD my whole life. It's not ADHD, but ADD. Most of the time, people that have it, same with autism, they're fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah,
they're so smart. Like so smart. They just don't know how to. They don't know how to communicate that. They don't know how
100%,
to.
100%. It's that savant syndrome. It's just straight up that savant. I mean, it's just crazy. And
we learn different too with ADD. Like don't give me a book to read. But if you show me how to do it one time, I'll probably do it better than you after. You
Oh,
know what I mean? Like I'm a visual. No, I won't
And
do it
that's
better than you, but I'm a
that's how
visual
he is as
learner.
well.
You know,
He
and
is
that's how I've always been.
horrible at
Shop
school with
class.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
the
100%. You know, I'm the
drawings.
same way. He went the exact opposite. Mom's very book smart. I'm very street smart and common sense. You know, common sense isn't something that was everybody's blessed with. So it's
yeah,
one of those things, you know. Unfortunately, he got the better end of the stick when it came to books. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's very common sense and he's a hell of a kid, you know, but when it comes to he just I don't know, like it's funny because my wife, my daughter, and my son are all taking college courses and they asked me, hey, do you want to go back and take a class? You know, and I'm like, not a chance in hell. The day I graduated high school was one of the happiest days in my life. It just
right.
did not come easy for me. It was very hard. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, I could pick up a book and read that thing 5 times and not understand what I'm reading.
It
Whereas
doesn't
if you
register.
had explained it to me in Chubb terms, I picked it up real quick. Boom, data. I'm an expert, you
Yeah,
know?
and now I'm a pro. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know what? And I have a hard time now too because when somebody shows me something once, I usually have it down.
Yeah.
I'll do it once with you standing there and then see if I can do it, see if it's done properly. And then once it's verified that I did it right, go away, I got this.
Oh, yeah.
But I get frustrated when I teach people and I show somebody something and they don't learn it the first time. I got to go back 5 times and show them. But that's where I have to remember too. Just because that's how I learn doesn't mean that's how you learn. That's not maybe how Bunny learns. Like I might have to fucking read you the book on how to do it. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
you
100%. You know,
may
it's funny. One of my blessings is like I said, I got an amazing partner. My wife is definitely my better half, you know, and we've always she
she's been
really
in the chat filling in your blanks.
oh, awesome. Thank you, baby. But no, I mean, like I said, she's an amazing woman. I mean, it just when it comes down to it, we've always said we have two opposite ways of doing things. I mean, I'm talking the way she does things sometimes, oh, it irritates the living crap out of me. But at the end of the day, I can wholeheartedly trust that we at the end of the day want to get the same results. So how those
Yeah,
results are obtained, that's
doesn't
irrelevant.
matter.
You know,
Yeah,
whether you put your left foot forward when you start walking or your right foot forward, it doesn't matter. We all got to the end. So
yeah,
who, like you just said, my kids will tell you I'm a horrible teacher because I'm one to, if you don't listen the first time, I'm going to start screaming at you.
yeah.
Come on, like
My
really?
kid's like, come on, Dad, stop it. Just give me the book.
Yep.
Because my kid's a reader. My kid will same as yours. Like he'll read the book.
Yeah. You know,
He'd
it's
rather
funny,
read the
like
book or
it,
Not
it,
mine.
it made me laugh because I got a pretty big yard, you know. I love my grass in my yard, and I got a pretty decent size. And my son, my oldest, you know, he tells me he wants to start mowing the yard for me. You know, he's like, I know you do a lot around the property. I have an acre of property. I got a lot of trees. I do all my own upkeep. I enjoy it. Like I said, it's just not my indoor gardens and my outdoor greenhouse. I love, you know, planting my rose bushes. I love, you know, I mean, it's
you
just
love
for me,
you
it's my
love
zen
anything green.
place.
Yeah.
But it cracks me up because he goes, okay, so I show him how to do it. I sat there and mowed it, had him walk along the side of me so he knew exactly how I do it. The first time he does it, instead of going vertical, what does he do? He goes horizontal lines the whole way. And I'm like, dude, we've lived here almost 5 years and I ain't never mowed the yard once like that. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
What? Yeah.
The lawn is mowed. I can't be upset. It just made me laugh.
Yeah.
Like, I just sat there and
Yeah.
showed you how to do it and we walked it, you know, like step for
Yeah.
step. But again, that's another thing, you know, to where everybody wants the same result. If you're going to decide to go down this avenue and go down this journey, just make sure that you cover your bases, get yourself medically licensed, do research. Even to this day, I've been growing for, I think, yeah, about 9 years now. And I still try to go to every class, every seminar, every expo that I humanly possible and I can with my life, you know, that is achievable.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I wish I can go to them all, but that's just not how it works. And we all have busy
Yeah.
lives. But
They get
we all
expensive
have
too.
phones and the technology at our disposal nowadays is just mind-blowing because anything and everything now is a lot more accessible. So even creating the oils and tinctures, you know, there's I'm sure you get on Reddit and there's certain groups and you know all that stuff that again there's more available information. If you can't find a specific question, never hesitate to reach out. I mean, again, I will like I tell my kids, you may not like the answer I give you, but I'll give you one. That was what my dad always had, and
Yeah.
I could go to my
And
dad for
honestly,
almost anything. But
if you ask the question and you get an answer that you don't like, you can't really be mad because you asked the question, you know?
100%,
And
But I will say,
you
don't
don't
ever be
make
afraid
the
to go on
answers,
that journey.
you're not making the answers. You're just telling people your own experiences and what worked for you. And at the
100%.
end of the day, they can use that as their baseline, as their guideline or whatever, and then go from there. And then they have to it's up to them to do their own research on top of that. But
Luckily
I got
enough,
I got one more question before we wrap it up because we've already gone through an hour. That's nuts.
that's wild, man. I'm only halfway through a blunt.
I know it's crazy. So you talked about being medically licensed. When it comes to dispensing THC to kids, do you have to get a certain license for that, or
Yeah.
is it you have to be licensed and
Yeah.
they don't? Like how does that whole
No,
how
my
does that
son
whole
has
thing
his
work?
own license as well. You have to go through a certain doctor that actually licensed children. There aren't a lot,
Okay.
but there are some that if you get online, again, thank God technology is the way it is and at our disposal,
Yeah.
and you better make sure without a doubt, don't even administer a drop thinker of it or anything, because it's going to get a whole lot nastier of the legal repercussions. And you get, especially if it's children involved, you get children's service and all that stuff, and again, so make sure, no, everybody in the household is licensed, like even my son that doesn't take cannabis anymore, I have him licensed just in case he ever decides to go back to it, that there's
Yeah.
no questions. Cause again, we've gone through the same pediatrician for years. And even like, my son, we moved about 5 years ago, but prior to that, he'd gone to the same elementary school, my autistic one. And I remember his teachers just, they like, you get those stories and those moments where you just, like I said, some are more impactful than others. And I remember his speech therapist telling me, remembering the first time she actually heard my son laugh. I think he was right around 6 or 7, and she just said he had that belly laugh and she had never heard it. And she'd been his speech therapist for 3 years, and with
Yeah.
autism, it's very scary because sometimes a lot of people don't understand it, but it's black and white. There is no gray area, The sense of humors aren't there, and again, it's different for everybody else and everybody is different, but my son is very black and white. I can say a joke in front of a crowd and he'll sit there and look at me and like, you're a dumbass, dad, Everybody else is laughing, he goes, I didn't get it,
Yeah.
but he'll say the fun, like a joke and it's like, really, dude, that's funny to you? But again, it's just everybody. So don't ever be afraid to go on that journey, especially if you're just trying to better somebody. I mean, it's not going to hurt. There's never been stories where someone's died of an OD because they've taken and consumed too much cannabis. I've never at least heard of anything,
Yeah.
but again,
I haven't
correct me
either.
if I'm wrong, but again, back to the alcohol, you hear horror stories every day, and I'm not saying, again, that's a whole different topic, but don't be afraid and don't be shy to do it, because like my son with ADHD, he's normal, atypical kid now taking college classes in junior and high school. I couldn't be more proud of him. My autistic son, you would never even know he has autism and epilepsy just because of what this amazing plant has allowed me to do. And thank God I am in a legal state to where we can get licensed and everybody is covered that way. And you don't have to, again, I like to try to do things basically by the book. Just,
Yeah.
I want to have a clear conscience. I don't want to look over my shoulder.
Especially when it comes to stuff like this,
So
because
cover your
like you said,
bases.
there definitely can be major repercussions to
Oh,
this if you
major,
haven't gone
For
through the
sure.
proper steps. So, and
100%. And
those
that's,
proper steps, depending on where you live, those steps might be different in Colorado. I know it's pretty legalized in Colorado as well, but they
yeah,
might be different when you get to Michigan,
yeah.
like
Do your
wherever you
research.
are in the United States or Canada or Australia or wherever
Yeah.
you are in the world, those steps that you got to go through are definitely going to be different. So
And
wherever
that's
you are, you got to look for your specific state, province, country,
100%.
however it works.
You're going to want to, like I said, I mean, again,
Mm.
it's a lot of information for one person. It's not impossible. It definitely isn't impossible. And I would do it full heartedly if I had to, And it's one of those things, just do your research, definitely you know, it's just like anything in life. Make sure if you're going to go into it, go head first, but do your research. Don't skimp on anything. Just like with the growing, if that's the route you decide to do, you'll know, you know, the minute you skimp on something's the minute your grow's going haywire over there and you're scratching your head going, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing, except for instead of it being a plant's life, this time it's a human life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So-
And that's why I said, you know, it's amazing to see the journey. And I love coming on and sharing it because everybody that a lot of those same people, like I said, that had the looks, I don't blame them for having the looks. Maybe it's just the way they were raised or how they understood and how they, you know, like just how they see the plant.
It's a lack of knowledge. It's a
And that's
lack of
what it is, you know.
information
So
on
I
their
feel
part. Almost 100%
thank you guys
of
and
the
much
time.
respect for doing what you guys do and having me on because it allows us,
Absolutely, man. Thank you for coming on.
you know, it allows us to lay the stepping stones for future generations to hopefully not go through these same trials and tribulations. I've always said it since day one.
100%.
Much respect to the people that did it for me and allowed me to do it, you know, and in my
Well,
eyes, they're
and
true heroes, you know, just because I
think
wouldn't have been able to without it.
I think that one of the very first stories that I heard that was like this is that Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, 100%, you
I
know, and
think I
like I
think
said,
that was
I knew a lot about Charlotte's Web. Like I said, I mean, it's a whole different story. There's big articles on the whole Charlotte's Web deal.
it is, but I mean it's the first, I think, real story that I ever heard
Yeah,
about
the
kids with
CBD route.
Cannabis being used.
cannabis for
Yeah,
kids being
Right.
used for
yeah.
seizures and different, different illnesses, different
And
disorders, whatever, however you want to put that,
that's when we started the journey. That was the first route we went because that was one of the first available avenues that you read about, you know, and it just comes up. You search, you know, cannabis and children or cannabis and epilepsy or anything like that. It's just going to be one of those things. But again,
first thing that comes up. Yeah.
it's just like cars. We all drive different cars, but we all want to get to A to B. So don't be afraid to sit there and try one. And if it doesn't work out for you, move to the next one, you know. And again, I'm not saying it will work, but don't be afraid to put that persistence in because persistence is definitely one of the keys of life.
100%.
I don't hold
100%.
back just because of the stigma.
No, that's why it's funny
Yeah.
because again, I knew I was going to get it just because of the way I grew up, you know, with my family being all fire
For sure.
department and all that stuff. You know, I already knew
Of
it. And
course.
I've never been a drinker. My family loves drinking wine. I've always been the smoker, you know, and come into the Christmas parties. Oh, you smell, or you get the weird looks. And I just sit there and smile like, yeah, I just wish you would have had some of that because it was bomb.
Yeah. That's when you just look at them and go, well, yeah, well, your teeth are purple from drinking that red wine.
Yep.
You know, you got a wine mustache.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I mean, it's different strokes, different folks, you know, and again, I'm not saying pharmaceuticals are better than the other. I'm just saying, you know what, if that's the route you want to do, don't sit there and not do it because of lack of research or lack of determination. I mean, it's going to be a long road, let me tell you. But
Yeah.
any parent
And
knows you're in it for the long haul. It ain't like you're going anywhere. So, and you just want what's best.
You're
So it's
already
like
on.
if
Like
that's
for
what
me,
you
I've
feel, you know what I
already
mean?
been
Like,
on a long road. That's why I'm thinking of alternatives now because I've already been on that long ass road. Now I want to, if I'm going to keep going down this long road, I'd like to try a different road to go down, you know?
100%, you know, and like I said, I mean, we didn't start that journey, and I was getting the same calls for a little while, you know, when we went down the pharmaceutical route. My son was having meltdowns in school. I had to come pick him up, you know, and I can't tell you. I mean, it got to the point where, you know, I would just walk into the school. They knew me. I didn't even have to sign in right away. I'd sign in on my way out, you know, because they already knew me by first name. And I'd walk
Yep.
right into his classroom. The teacher'd see me. She'd never even skip a beat reading the book. I'd pick my son up off the floor,
Yep.
throw him over my shoulder, and walk right out of class. I mean, I'm telling you, just it's like in the movies, you know, it's almost comical now that it's been so many years. But, you know, I'd be on a service call fixing somebody's appliance, you know, replacing a compressor on a refrigerator, and on a Zoom call with my son having a meltdown in his classroom going, what's wrong with him? You know, what's wrong, buddy? You know, and it just, we've always had that bond to where we've had that connection to where luckily enough, you know, and just don't be afraid, you know what I mean? Because it was scary. If I did anything, and it was very scary. It's one of the scariest decisions I've ever had to make in my life. But now fast forward, I'm the most thankful that
The
I
best
made it. And
decision
again,
you ever made. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna know if you're thankful or not until you try it, and definitely don't be discouraged.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. I love it. Well, do you want to let everybody know where they can find Mr. Chubbs?
You can find me on IG. I'm on all the platforms, Reddit, Discord. Luckily enough, Chubscause isn't very common, so it's all the same on all platforms, So,
There you have it. Google it, folks. It'll come up.
yeah, exactly. You can even Google me, it will come up. So that's the cool part.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Man, we appreciate you coming on and going over all
Oh my
that.
God,
That's
yes.
Anytime,
like
and if
you
you get a
said,
lot
that's
of feedback from the community, I can't
I
see the
want the
questions. I tell my
feedback.
wife all the time, I'm like, I can't see the messages in the community. I don't know how people do it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I must look like an idiot or an asshole because I never reply to anybody that's ever messaging anything, but
Yeah.
if you get a lot of people and you want to have me back on, we can cover a part 3 to it anytime. I mean, I can always
Totally.
sit down again. If you have certain specifics, I can definitely get answers to it and explain it more. It's
For
just one of
sure.
those
Yeah.
things, we could sit here for days and talk about it because there's so
Oh
much to
yeah.
it.
Well, I think
But
one thing turns into leads to something else, leads to something else, leads to something else. We're still on the same topic, but we've just gone around in one big ass circle. You know what I mean? So
exactly. And that's why a lot of people are
mm,
scared to start that journey because of the vast amount that you're going to have to take on. And again, anything and everything that's basically going to amount to anything in life takes time, work, effort. And then that's where the dedication and passion comes in. True
yeah,
passion is going to show through. And if you're very passionate about the decision you made, you're going to do everything possible to make sure that it works.
especially when it comes to family, kids,
100%.
wife, husband,
Yeah.
whatever, dog,
100%.
cat.
Anything, and that it's just one of those things. And that's where it'll be time. I definitely think we'll see it hopefully worldwide, federally legal, whatnot, or however you want to
I
say it in
hope
our
so.
lifetime. It's just going to
I hope
be,
I see it in my lifetime. I hope so.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like our parents, they said they wanted to see flying cars. I'm like, no, I just want to see cannabis legal worldwide in mine. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
For sure. For sure. But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us about that. It's not an easy topic. And but like I said, I think a lot of people relate to this, whether they've been down that road, whether they've wanted to go down that road, whatever the case is. I feel like it's a relatable topic. A lot of us have children, so a lo- most of us here use cannabis ourselves. So I
yeah.
mean, it just kind of
Well, it goes back
it
to real
makes
quick, about like the smell. If you smell a bag or you open, one of these Turplock bags and they're like, holy shit, that smells like some fire. I tell you what, I don't know if you're like me, but I can't break it up quick enough to roll it.
yeah. I want to try that now.
So when it comes to, like a lot of people go, well, how do you know what strain? Again, when I first started growing, I started with the GDPs and all those just because they're so medically. You Google medical cannabis and Granddaddy Purp's one of the top strains that comes out. And again, I'm not against any of that, but for me, I've learned with my situation and fast bud strains, I've used every one of them. And I think it's more than just terpenes. I think it's more than just that. It's again, we may not even know the name. I could send you a bag and may not know the name. Again, we could do the blind test again. And if you smell it and you sit there and sample it without looking at it and without making a judgment because of what something looks like, or you know what I mean, something like that, generally you're going to like and enjoy the way it tastes and the way the effect is,
Sure.
so that's kind
Yeah.
of the route and direction I went with. And luckily enough, it's worked. And that's like you said, everybody's situation is different, but it has worked in mine.
Yeah.
That.
Beautiful. I love it. I definitely think episode 3. We might not get you back on here in 2 weeks. So you might become a regular on here. This might become a
I
monthly
still have a
episode.
lot of questions, so
Yeah,
Oh,
for
definitely.
sure.
Like I said, I'm an open book. Never hesitate. And again, if the community or anybody reaches out to you guys and you want to put something together, definitely reach out to me, and I guarantee we'll put together another episode and make sure we get
For
what
sure.
what people want to hear.
I'd love to have people that are in the chat right now, maybe in the comments on this video once it's posted. You don't have to say if you have a child that suffers from something, or whatever. But if this episode was relatable to you, if you
Yeah.
know somebody,
It's crazy
old,
because
young, male, female, whatever.
it's crazy, especially in my state, how much more relatable it is, because more often than not, we're all in the same boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Again, one may be rowing over here, one may be rowing back there, but at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat and it's called life.
Yep.
100%, 100%. You got to write a book, sir.
Yes.
You know what? I ain't even going to. We'll see if it's in the, it's not in the works, but I tell my wife because
Right?
she tells me the same thing. And I'm like, I don't even know if people would want to listen to what I have to say, but I definitely, again,
I think I would.
I've had my fair share of issues and I've had my fair share of problems with growing and all that. I mean, it's fun. That's what I find fun in everything, and there's so much
Yeah,
to it. Don't ever be afraid to just dive head first, because that's exactly what I did. And I don't know, that's the enjoyable part because there's not a book on any of this stuff.
that,
There's no book on
that's amazing.
parenting. There's no book on life. There's a
Yeah,
perspective on life you can read in a book that somebody says this is the way you should do it or this is the way it should be done. And at the end of the
yeah,
day, you know what? There's no other way to do it than live it. And if you're not trying, you're
100%.
not doing. So again, give it your all.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I love it, man. I love
Nah,
everything that you
appreciate it.
said. But we appreciate you coming on and talking about that because, I mean, people don't normally just come out and say all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that gets
Oh,
talked about. And I love the fact that you're normalizing it. I love the fact that you're not normalizing it. It just is normal in
Yeah.
your life. This is just
I mean,
your
it's
everyday
everyday life
normal
for
life.
me. I mean, my son's
So
not gonna epilepsy doesn't just go away. Thank God he's been seizure free, but it doesn't just one of those things, 5 years from now, all of a sudden, hey, you're not gonna have epilepsy. No, once you're diagnosed, I believe it's for life, as far as again,
yeah,
my wife half to might explain that one to me, but again, you know,
yeah,
but no, I mean, it's all fun, and I tell people doing this stuff, I really enjoy, the cannabis cups, the showcasing my grows, all that stuff, the community, all that is icing on the cake for me because the way it's worked out and my son being seizure free, that's the whole reason why I got into it. So everything else it's all a bonus, dude. So for
yeah.
me, I feel I'd be doing a disservice if I wasn't on here spreading my journey and just kind of trying, like you said, not normalize it, but just get it more. It should be in every household, in my opinion.
Make
Everyday
people,
household, everyday household. You go to the grocery store. I guarantee it. Tomatoes are probably in your cart. It probably should be right there up there in the medicine cabinet, just in case, in some
right.
way or form. Whether it be topical, whether it be an oil, flour. You never know. Grandma might want to twist one up and remind her of her old days. Or you
Right.
need a little ointment for your sore knee. You never know, but I think it
Yeah.
should be there.
Well, I mean, we all have stuff like that. I got Advil in my cupboard,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
not
So
because I need it every day, but once in a while I get a headache. I want to take an Advil, you
yeah,
know?
hundred
So
percent,
why
bro.
not?
Hundred
Why not
percent.
have a bottle full of THC capsules in there or CBD if that's what you choose,
I mean,
whatever it is.
you see it every day, even about like the animals and the dogs. CBD here, this, gummies here, this. I'm not an edible person, so I couldn't tell you, anything about it, but I guarantee it, the way my pigs enjoy eating the leaves I defoliate or the plants that just don't make the cut or whatever, it may be. They're a lot more happier and enjoyable after they ate it, So it's like, all
Yep.
right, I know it must be doing something.
Yep.
yeah.
100%. 100%. But yeah, man, we won't keep you any longer. We kept you almost an hour and a half. We kept you. But no, we appreciate you coming on, man. And I wish more people thought the same way that you do,
Yes.
where, I want to come on, I want to spread the word,
Yep.
I wish more people thought like that because, like John Lindsay said in there, so many people try to hide this. And I don't think they want to hide it. I think it's because they may not have gone through all the steps that you need to go through. So they kind of have to hide it. It's like us back in the day.
Hundred
So I
percent,
think
100%.
with you and other people like you that are out there spreading this word, it might become easier for somebody to go down that road
For
and
me,
know where to
the
go.
hardest part of starting that journey is talking openly to the pediatrician about it. I
It's
think that
funny.
would be the hardest step.
it's more normal than you'd think once you have the licensing. Again, we've had the same pediatrician for years, and it's funny, like this year I had the pleasure of taking him. My wife had an appointment, she had to go take care of. So I had to take them on their yearly, doing their whole exams and all that stuff. And he pulls out their chart and he's like, still on cannabis? And it's still, for me, it's just, I don't know, it just takes you side like, yeah. And again, it's just, like, all right, perfect. Everything looks normal, healthy, and again, my wife has a picture of both my boys a year apart, in the same spot, where one was where they started cannabis and then one was, a year after they started, just after they got off of pharmaceuticals. And the change in that picture will almost bring any person that has ever gone down this road to tears, just because the life comes back into you, and you don't really see that when you live it every day, because that's your normal. You don't understand it because you see it every day. You didn't know there was a
and
difference.
the changes happen so gradually, then you see them every day.
100%. And that's why it's
a year
persistence.
later, they don't even look the same as they did a year later, and
No,
then that's
like with my son with ADHD, that kid couldn't gain weight to save his life. He was, I want to say, on the lower percentile he had to drink Pedialytes and Ensures and stuff like that just to, so that way he could try. It's a whole different topic. You know what I mean? There's so much about this plant that it can do for people. And to think now, he's a healthy kid. He outweighs me by far, you know what I mean? So it's nice when you go to the doctors and they're like, everything's right. And again, he doesn't consume cannabis anymore, but it allowed him to get back to where he needed to live a productive life and, and just be himself.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, brother. But no, anytime, man. Like I said, we'll definitely, anytime you want me back on, we'll work it out.
Sure. Sounds good,
yes.
man. No, we
and
really
again, Bunny, if you
appreciate
ever have any questions, never hesitate. Anybody, never hesitate to reach out. Again, I'll tell you to the best of my ability. I'm never going to try to steer you wrong, just because that's just wrong in itself. Especially what we're trying to do is help somebody and could save a life. So to sit there and give somebody misinformation that you heard from somebody that might work is just wrong. I can give it to you the way that it's worked for me. And, definitely don't ever hesitate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
man. Yes, thank you. We appreciate it. But
Anytime,
we'll
brother.
let you go for the night. But I honestly think that there will be a part 3 eventually. We'll
give me on, brother. Give me on. Like
we'll
I
be
said,
talking. We'll be talking.
definitely
I think
sounds
this
good,
is a
brother.
great
Sounds
topic.
good.
So,
I look forward to it. And
brother.
like I said, it's one of those things, the more it's talked about, the more common it is. And nowadays, just even smoking weed is more common than you think. You sit there and start talking to the nurse checking you into the hospital. It's like, she's over there smelling her shirt, like, why the fuck, but you're like, nah, it's me. And then you guys both start laughing type shit, so it's more common than you think nowadays, so this is what's going to break that stigma. Stories like this is going to allow people to open their eyes, break that generational knowledge that they were known that it's bad and this and that, and allow research to be done and studies to be done and all that stuff. And that's where it gets back to, imagine the 30 years that we lost out since, or 50 years now that it's been, and hopefully in the next 50, it double times, and we make milestone strides, that's just all I can pray.
Absolutely. Yeah. Based off of what I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, that's kind of looking like how it's going to be, but we'll see on the legalities of everything and how that goes. But my fucking dog is going nuts over here. But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll be getting you
anytime,
back.
brother. Anytime.
Yes.
And
You have
I
yourself
appreciate
a great
everybody.
night.
Appreciate everybody
Man.
tuning in and hearing,
We appreciate
listening to me ramble.
Hell yeah. No, it was good. It was really good. It was good, man. But
Hell yeah.
we will we'll say peace for tonight, but
Peace.
we'll get back for round 3 somewhere down the road, and we'll keep this conversation rolling.
Sounds good, brother. You guys have a good night, and I hope everyone has a blessed rest of their week.
You as well.
You as well. Thank you.
Peace, brother.
Peace.
Well, that was a great episode.
That was a great episode. I learned a lot. I hope The chat learned a lot. I mean, it was a great listen. You know what I mean? Like there was so much
Mhm.
information in there, and it's how good is a story when like you hear, this is what was happening, and then this is what we did, and then all of a sudden now it's like perfectly fine. He's great. You know, like that. The success stories, I love them, and that to me is huge success story. So, oh, one sub short of 1,000. Getting
Yeah, so with that
close.
being said, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. We only need one more to do the giveaway. Uh, Next Wednesday. What about next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday, we actually don't have anybody booked for the moment.
Yet.
We're gonna try and get somebody booked, but we have people booked for after. We
After
just don't
that.
have that day booked. Nobody wants that day. Every time we ask somebody, they go, "Can I have the next Wednesday?" So the next Wednesday,
So
not
stay
this next
tuned. It'll be
Wednesday,
a
but
surprise.
1 week from then, we have an awesome show. Hi, puppy. Yes.
But until then, we will see you on Friday. It's Come Show Your Grow, and we hope to see you there. Thanks for
And if
tuning
we
in.
hit the 1,000 subs tonight before midnight, we'll do the giveaway this Friday. How's that sound? What do you think?
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. If we hit that 1,000 tonight before midnight, we'll do the giveaway this Friday. All right.
All
Peace.
right. Have a great night, everybody.
Peace.